Now, because everybody is going to be, everybody ranking these things is going to be different, because to rank a schedule, you have to determine how good everybody is coming into the season. So everybody's going to be different, and everybody's opinions are going to be different on, say, how good is Nebraska going to be? Is that going to be a challenging matchup? So let's first start with how I feel these teams are kind of ranked quality-wise as we come in. So not factoring in the schedule, who is going to be the best teams? How do they rank in tiers? My tiers go like this. And this is the Tier 1A in the Big Ten. You've got Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Illinois. I think those are the 4 best quality teams as we enter the season. Then I've got a Tier 2, and that Tier 2 consists of just Michigan and USC. Tier 3, I've got Indiana and Nebraska. In Tier 4, I've got Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Washington. So those are my tiers. And now I've ranked the schedules from toughest to easiest with, I didn't rank them all. When we got down to like 10, I just went to go to the easiest. So we'll start with the toughest schedule in the Big Ten. And I'm not going through every single game they have. I'm going through the tough games on the schedule for each of these guys. If they're going to be a 14-point favorite, I skipped over it. But I might put them all up here for you to look at as I'm going through these. So unfortunately for our guy Luke Fickell, Wisconsin, in year number 3 with a fan base that's already irritated with him, has the absolute toughest schedule in the Big Ten. I feel bad for him, man. He's a guy that I want success for. 5-7 last year. When we look at this schedule, you start off going to Alabama. Then you got to go to Michigan. Iowa comes into Wisconsin. Ohio State comes into Wisconsin. They have to go to Oregon. Washington comes in. They go to Indiana. Illinois comes in. And then they go to Minnesota to end the year. That is a stretch of death that we haven't seen in the Big Ten for a long time. It wouldn't have been possible without Big Ten expansion. And as I say, I've been rooting for Luke. I feel terrible that he got saddled with this. But I was talking with College Football with Sam the other day, and if you didn't catch that episode, check that out over on his channel. I actually think that this could be like we saw with Billy Napier, where the schedule is so tough that everybody cuts him a break because it's so tough. But the Badger folks are getting irritated. Next up, the second most difficult schedule in the Big Ten, Iowa. Iowa was 8-5 last year. They bring in a slick quarterback from South Dakota State, Mark Gronowski. It could be the difference. It could be what Iowa needs to actually get a little offense. They got to play Iowa State to start off for the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Then they go to Indiana. They go to Wisconsin. They've got Penn State at home, Minnesota at home. Then they got to play Oregon, USC, and they close with Nebraska. That's a tough go. That is 4 teams from last year on that schedule that were really good. Oregon, Penn State, Iowa State, and Indiana. So a tough go for them. At number 3, we got our boys. Pardon me, I need a beverage. Okay, we're back. I apologize. It's a good time to ask you, since we have a little break here, to please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, I don't know what you're waiting on. You also should set those alarm bells. Let's get to the number 3 team, the third hardest schedule in the Big Ten in 2025, per the JUCK on Bucks official rankings, the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes open, of course, with Texas coming to town. That's going to be a straight-up banger. Then they got to go out to Washington. Always a tough trip, even when Washington isn't very good. I think they're going to be much better this year. Michigan lost last year out there. Of course, that's not a comparison, but you know what I mean. Then you got Minnesota at home. Minnesota won 8 games last year. They're improving. Then you go to Illinois. Illinois is going to be really good. Then you're at Wisconsin. So those are back-to-back games at Illinois, at Wisconsin. Take a week off. Then you host the team that everybody's calling this year's Ohio State, this year's Michigan, Penn State. Got all the seniors back. That'll be a tough one. After that, you got 3 snoozers. Then you got the game. So the big dogs are Texas, Illinois, Penn State, and Michigan. You also got a lot of the second-tier guys in Washington, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Not an easy schedule at all for the Buckeyes. One of the roughest regular season schedules we've seen in some time. On to number 4 for poor Lincoln Riley. And you know I hate this guy, but listen to the stretch this guy's got in consecutive weeks. Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Nebraska. That is a tough one, man. They get 1 week to breathe after that. Then they're at home against Iowa. Then they go to Oregon. So Notre Dame, Oregon, Illinois, Michigan. Those are your big mamas, man. That's a hell of a schedule. At number 5, I'm going with Washington. Washington plays 3 of our top tier teams with their first game against Ohio State, couple of snoozers, then they play Michigan, then they are home for Illinois, Wisconsin, UCLA. I don't know why I included UCLA. They end the season against Oregon. So by virtue of playing Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, and Oregon, that's stacked for Jed Fish, man. The good news for him is he's got a stud quarterback this year. Really going to impress some people. Number 6, 8-5 Michigan. Some people calling this an easy schedule. I disagree. In the non-con, they go to Oklahoma. Really, Ohio State and Michigan, the only schools that have big-time games in the Big Ten in the non-con this year, which is pretty disappointing. So after Oklahoma, they go to Nebraska. They've got Wisconsin at home. They're at USC. They've got Washington at home, and then Ohio State. Not easy at all by my rankings of where I got the teams this year tiered. Number 7, weirdo PJ Fleck in the Minnesota Golden Gophers. 8-5 last year. As I said, they've got to go to Oregon. They go to Penn State. They go to Iowa, and they host Nebraska. They also host Wisconsin. That's a tough go. Number 8, Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. Tough games for them include Illinois at home. They also go to Iowa and to Oregon. Late in the season, they're at Penn State and home against Wisconsin. This is going to be a real show-me year. Was it real? Can you rebuild with all those transfer portal guys you had from last year? Veteran guys. We're going to see. It's going to be really interesting what they can do in Bloomington this year. Number 9, Penn State. For a team that's as loaded as they are, with all the returning seniors, their schedule really sets up nicely for them. They got to go to Oregon, they got to go to Iowa, and they got to go to Ohio State. Those are their rougher games, right? Obviously, Oregon and Ohio State going to be bangers for them. If they can get through Iowa, they've also got Indiana at home in Nebraska. So those teams right there, if you can, you lose to Oregon and Ohio State, if you can handle business against Iowa, Indiana, and Nebraska, which you should be able to, they're going to get a playoff spot. Obviously, they're going to want to knock off one of Oregon or Ohio State. If they can, guaranteed playoff spot. Number 10, UCLA, who plays no one in the outer conference. They got Penn State, 4-game stretch at the end of the year. Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, and USC. That's pretty tough for our dude out there. The hell is his name? What the hell is that guy's name? You know, the guy that I love, that I'm rooting for because he cried at the press conference and then he made an idiot of himself at Big Ten Media Days. Why am I forgetting his name? Literal NFL running back stud, running back dude. I can't go on until I look this up. I'm sorry. It's just how my brain works. Why am I an idiot today? Deshaun Foster. So to recap the 10 most difficult schedules in the Big Ten per the JUCK on Bucks rankings, we've got number 1, Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers. Number 2, Iowa. Number 3, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Number 4, Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. Number 5, Washington. Number 6, Michigan. Number 7, Minnesota. Number 8, Indiana. Number 9, Penn State. Number 10, UCLA. Let's get to who has the easiest schedules in the Big Ten. The single easiest schedule in the Big Ten belongs to one of the biggest playoff contenders this year, and that's Illinois. And I guess you could feel good for them, right? It's Illinois. They've got talent coming back. Good for them. But this schedule is ridiculous. They return a ton. They beat South Carolina in the bowl game. They won 10 games. They have got an absolute dog crap schedule. They got USC, Ohio State, at Washington, and at Wisconsin. And that's it. Essentially, they can lose to Ohio State. They can lose to USC. And if they handle business against Washington and Wisconsin, the rest of the schedule is a total layup. I mean, talk about blessed. Illinois is a good bet for the playoffs. All right, let's get to the Ducks. So when we talk about USC and Oregon coming into the Big Ten, Oregon for the second year in a row with a pretty light schedule, USC with the second year in a row with a really tough schedule. So Oregon has the big banger against Penn State. They've got Wisconsin coming out to Autzen. They go to Iowa. They got Minnesota coming to town. USC comes to town, and they're at Washington. So Penn State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, USC, and Washington. A total cakewalk of a schedule. And that's what we got here, guys. So the top 4 contenders in the Big Ten, Ohio State, the 3rd most difficult schedule. Penn State, the 10th most difficult schedule. Oregon and Illinois have the 2 easiest schedules in the entire conference. So Oregon and Illinois just need to not screw up. Ohio State and Penn State, particularly Ohio State, really going to get challenged. USC with the 4th most difficult schedule. Michigan with the 6th most difficult schedule. And the next group, the long shot groups, Wisconsin, the most difficult schedule. Iowa, the 2nd most difficult schedule. Minnesota and Indiana, the 7th and 8th, respectively. So set up great for Illinois and Oregon. And that's where we stand, guys.